Lawrence O'Donnell, news anchor of MSNBC's The Last Word with Lawrence O'Donnell.
Thank you. I want to begin, as is appropriate for a social good summit, with something Dick Gregory once said. He said, "One of the things I keep learning is that the secret of being happy is doing things for other people." And Dick Gregory's celebration of life ceremony was yesterday in Washington. He died last month at age 84 after a lifetime of doing things for other people. And I just flew up this morning from Washington after participating in Dick's ceremony. And that wasn't the plan, by the way. The plan was to come back last night because it started at 4 o'clock, and I was going to speak somewhere in the middle of the program, and then I figured I could catch one of the last trains out of Washington. But when it ended at 10:30, with not one person leaving in 6 hours of celebrating Dick Gregory's life, there weren't any more trains or planes to catch, and I had to go look for a hotel room. And so those of you who are watching this live to the streaming audience, if you were watching the streaming video of Dick's celebration yesterday, yes, this is exactly the same wardrobe without the necktie. That's the way it turns out sometimes. I'm going to take us back in technology because there's been a fair amount of fascinating talks about the potential for what technology can unleash in places that don't yet have it. I'm going to take us back 140 years because it was 140 years ago, it was 1880, in the United States of America, where the first school classroom got the first student desk. Before that, the best they had would be a bench. Most of them didn't have the bench. Most American schools had seating like this, kids sitting on the floor. And of course, most kids in the United States then did not go to school at all, which is still true in Malawi, where those kids are sitting. And when you think about deprivation out there in the world beyond where we live, it takes a minute. It takes sometimes more than a minute. Think, for example, when you drive through different parts of this country, you drive through different neighborhoods, you walk through different neighborhoods in New York City, you pass them in your bus in New York, and you're looking out the window. You have in your head, you have in the back of your head, front of your head sometimes, these ways of evaluating where you are socioeconomically. You drive around and you see the cars in the driveways. You see how many driveways have garages. You see how many houses have driveways. You see how old the cars are. In Malawi, where I do my work on the project we're going to discuss, it's shoes. That's how I can tell where we are socioeconomically when I visit a village in Malawi, a village school, to deliver desks where they've never had desks before. And take your time looking at that picture. I don't know how much you can see from where you are out there. You'll see more. But in the places where we're delivering desks now, most of the kids don't have shoes. Most of the kids have exactly one outfit, one shirt, one pair of short pants usually, one dress. That's it. And so when we, at summits like this, think about all the things we can do with advanced technology, we are in some instances skipping ahead of where we are right now. The electricity discussion that we just had here is absolutely fascinating, and some of these schools, including this one, this is one of the few that I've seen, has a solar panel, and it's a solar panel about the size of this lectern. And with that solar panel, the head of the school is able to get online. And that is this exactly one school where I have seen in that entire country, where the head of the school with his very old laptop is able to find a way to get online. And so we are, 2030, 2030, most villages in Malawi still won't have electricity at all, not little clusters of solar grids and things. It is difficult to even reach these places with vehicles. There aren't a lot of vehicles that can actually get there. And so I'm just here to say, let's continue to think about all of the advanced ideas that you're hearing about. But let's not forget what we're going to have to do, what we're going to have in place when we do turn on the lights. These schools have enough light. It's natural light. It comes through these kind of openings they have in the roof. It comes through things that we don't consider windows, that are basically holes in the wall. There's no glass in these schools. Some of the schools don't have roofs, so light isn't the problem. Some of the schools don't have enough classrooms. The classes meet under a tree, if there is a tree to meet under for a little bit of shade. And so there's a level here of deprivation that takes a while to understand. And the way I got involved in this is a friend of mine had just come back from Malawi, and she's a public school teacher in Boston, and she visited schools, and she said to the people in schools, "What do you need?" And they all said exactly the same thing. Same thing, same word. They didn't say paper, they didn't say pencils, they didn't say books. Teachers. The teachers all said chairs. They just wanted chairs. They just wanted what you have right now. They just wanted the students to get off the floor. Let's move to this slide right after this, because I want you to see this is a typical hard-working student in Malawi, and that is her classroom day. When it comes time to write, here are the choices. What she's doing right now. Another choice, which we don't have a picture of at the moment, I wish we did, and this is used a lot, is that I write on your back. I sit behind you. I use your back, and I write on your back, and someone's doing that behind me. And the need is so profound and seems so simple. And so when I heard about this, when I heard about that little girl without having seen her, I just said to my friend, well, we could get desks, right? We could do something, couldn't we? And it turns out it's much more difficult than I thought. And I went over to Malawi on an exploratory attempt. And that's where I discovered one guy with a hardware store who knew how to make desks, because there were no desk makers in Malawi. They had no ability to do it. And he had one little model, and I asked him if he could make 30 of those this week and deliver them to a classroom down the road, and he said, "Sure, I can." I said, "How are you going to do that?" He said, "I'm going to go out in the street." This is in the capital city, Malawi. "And I'm going to find carpenters and welders out there in the street who are out of work. Some of them have never worked, but they're trained, they know how to do it. And I'm going to put them on 24-hour shifts, 3 8-hour shifts for the next few days. And we're going to do it." And he did it. And I think if we go up a slide or two, you'll see the way these desks arrive at these schools. This giant truck shows up now when we get to a school, and this truck brings enough desks for an entire school. And in the next slide, you're going to see, and by the way, that's as sophisticated as trucking gets in Malawi. Those desks are stacked on top of each other. There's then a rope that's used to tie them down so that they don't fall as it's moving. But, you know, in Malawi, the maximum speed you're going to hit with that truck is about 30 miles an hour on the best roads. Let's look at this next shot of this is the great moment, and this is when the desks arrive. And I discovered this the first time because we brought about 7 guys from the place where the desks were made to unload the truck. And then we never brought them again because we don't need them. Because the kids rush to the truck and they take instant possession of these desks. And when I say possession, you have to understand, this is their first possession. They don't have toys, they don't have anything like what we are accustomed to having. They invent toys, they find the right twig that becomes this magic wand that you watch them play with for hours. They are incredibly creative children and incredibly active, but not without any of the activity supports that we're used to here. And they grow up fast. They grow up really fast. It took me actually a few years of going to Malawi and delivering desks before I noticed I had never once seen a stroller anywhere in Malawi, not even in the wealthiest neighborhoods, and I say wealthiest kind of in quotation marks for us. Kids learn to walk because they have to walk, because there are no strollers. Their mothers cannot stroll them down the street. What you will see is very, very hard-working women carrying a load of wood on their heads 8 miles to market with a baby on their backs all the way. But as soon as that baby's legs are strong enough, that kid's going to do her own walking, his own walking. Every once in a while, you'll see an older brother or sister lifting, you know, maybe a 2-year-old, maybe a 2.5-year-old, but never again. And so you see these tiniest kids, you know, out there playing independently and using nothing but their imaginations. But when they get these desks, it really is Christmas morning. It really is the day that otherwise never comes, the day when something for them truly magical enters their lives. And when we're going to move up, I think, and show you some pictures of them at these desks. And it's one of those, you know, before and after scenes where it's, oh, look at they're smiling at the desks, and you go, well, so you waited for them to, no. They light up. They light up in these desks in a way that I'm not that you just couldn't see any other way. They're not told this is happening. They're not told this is coming. You can't tell them that because, you know, the truck could break down and it might take a few more days. There could be flooding. There could be different things that make it impossible to deliver on a particular time. And you don't want to tamper with that expectation. And so it's a surprise every time. And they are just so overjoyed, and they sit in them. And what you're seeing is a desk that is about the cheapest construction you could come up with for a desk. It costs about $55 to get one of those desks in a classroom. In most of the classrooms, which are tremendously overcrowded, 100 kids in a classroom designed for 30 is very common, especially at the lower grades. As you move up in the grades, there's more room in the classroom because kids are dropping out every year. So there's just a tiny graduation rate of high school, for example, and the girls' graduation rate from high school is half what the boys' graduation rate is. And that's why when we were into this program for a couple of years, which I partnered with UNICEF to do this, and originally, you know, I thought I'd just do it myself. I'd just create a foundation. I'd do it myself. And I at some point had a discussion with UNICEF, and I realized how much I didn't know about doing this, and it would be impossible. I can't say this more clearly. It would be impossible to do this without UNICEF. UNICEF has infrastructure on the ground in Malawi that I could never recreate, including a bunch of amazing Toyota, you know, Land Rovers that can cover any territory we need to cover, get wherever we need to get. And without UNICEF, we could never have done this. And it was Victor Chinyama, who is someone who was working in the UNICEF office in Malawi, who took me aside in the third year that I was doing this and said, you know, there's more to do. And I was very, very reluctant to do anything more with this program than desks, because it is this very simple thing. We call it the Kind Fund Kids in Need of Desks, which you can find at last word, what is it? It'll come to me if Christina yells it to me. Last word, huh? I think it's lastword.msnbc. Lastworddesks.msnbc.com. I've only said it about 10,000 times, but you know, it's a sleep-deprived morning for me. And Victor said, you know, there's more you can do. But I really like the simplicity of this, because we all understand it. You know, the kids understand it. We've gotten a lot of great contributions from young kids. A chapter of the Boy Scouts, 6 kids in Birmingham, Alabama, a couple of years ago, got together, having seen these videos, the pictures of those kids and videos of those kids, their own age. And they raised $18,000 that they presented to this fund, because kids get it instantly, right away. Kids who are sitting at desks in schools get it instantly. What if I didn't have this? And Victor said, you know, there's a problem with girls' education in countries like Malawi. And we talked about that. And I think a lot of you would understand a lot of the elements of that already. And basically, especially high school. Public high school is free only for elementary school, and that's very common in African countries. It is not free. There's no free high school anywhere in the country. Public high school you have to pay for. It's a tiny amount of money by our standards, you know, $62. Some of the schools are less. One of the more expensive schools is $200 a year, and then you have to throw in school uniforms sometimes for the girls and other things, and oftentimes the kid has to live in the village where the high school is, because the high school is too far away from where they live, so you have to figure in some room and board for that. They have to rent rooms in people's houses in order to go to high school. And so Victor urged me to create a component of the fund which was high school tuition for girls. And my daughter was with me on this trip, and she was in high school at the time. And so Victor had an instant advocate on his side. But I'm telling you, I was really reluctant about this, because I wanted to keep the simplicity of the idea. And then we did it. And we've raised a couple of $1 million for that since, maybe about $3 or $4 million for that. And that really has changed lives in a way that we can see instantly. Because one of the things about social good, and this is one of the things I talked about yesterday about Dick Gregory's life, is that you don't always know what good you're doing. And sometimes it's because it isn't working. The thing you're trying isn't working, and the good isn't happening. But so often, it's because the good is happening in a way that's invisible to you, and you won't be able to know, or you won't be able to know for many, many years. But with this, with tuition for a girl to stay in high school, finish high school in Malawi, you see it right there before your eyes. I've been there with girls who have been sent home from their schools by well-meaning school administrators who are not allowed to keep them there because they don't have the tuition money, and we changed that. And we changed that in an instant, thanks to the contributions that basically it's funded entirely by the audience of my show. And those are lives changed instantly. And these girls all have ambitions to be nurses, to be doctors, to be teachers. Nurse and teacher are their most common ambition, because those are the 2 adult jobs that they've seen, that they know require education. And to see those lives changed instantly is really a moving experience. And we're going to hear from one of those girls in a second, and we're going to hear from her right now. Because this says must wrap, and I believe it. I believe it. Joyce Chizali is a girl who is finishing high school thanks entirely to this. No. Okay, so what we're going to do is hold that video. We don't need the one with me because we're going to wrap. We're just going to hear Joyce and her poem. I think you believe I was there, right? You don't have to see that. Yeah. So Joyce tells me that she's got the dual ambition for when she finishes her education. She wants to be a doctor and a poet. And this is a kind of wonderful discovery. And I ask her in the moment there, she's written her own poetry. We talk about that a little bit. And I say, do you have something that you could give us? And she gives it to us in that second of being asked for it. I'm going to show it to you in a second, and it'll be a really clear cue back there when I ask for the video, okay? And she gives us the poem that describes everything about what we're trying to do and everything about the pace of what we're trying to do. Because even though we've raised close to $15 million for this, most kids in Malawi still do not have desks in their schools. 70% of them still do not have desks in their schools. And that's true in most of the other countries neighboring Malawi and in that region. And so we're doing this at the best pace we can find, but it takes patience because these things don't happen quickly. And Joyce captured her life, she captured what real progress is, and she captured what we were doing in this beautiful poem that she gave us in that moment. And I'm going to let Joyce wrap this for us and have the last word of this presentation. Thank you. We're going to fix your problem with school fees, okay?
Yeah, I'm very excited.
We're going to help you pay. We're going to get the school fees for you.
Wow, that's very interesting.
To stay in school. Oh, there's a problem. We don't have the video of her doing the poem. We do have the video, it's not working. I think that's the same as not having it. I don't know. So I'm going to have to read Joyce's poem. You can go to our website where we have it permanently installed. Okay. But see, here's the thing. Anchormen aren't supposed to cry, so I don't know how I can do this. Joyce's poem, you're serious? We're giving up on the video? It's not, I believe them now. So Joyce gives us this poem and she says, little by little we go, no matter how far the distance is. We are not shaken. Little by little we go and reach our destination. Little by little we go, no matter how bumpy or rocky the road is. We are not going to turn back. Little by little we go and fulfill our dreams. Little by little we go, no matter how narrow the path is. We are going to force ourselves to pass, and little by little we'll go and reach the promised land. Don't be shaken, don't turn back. Little by little we go and reach your destination. Thank you.